I still don't know exactly where I'm looking because I'm filming with my iPhone. The lens, I assume, is the little green dot. Let's see if it works this time. Yeah, because last time I was looking off camera the entire time. Okay, we're back for video 2 with my coffee in tow. I finally have some furniture. As you can see, I have a couch. Very fidgety with this jacket, but faux fur is a must for sensuality. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about dating with herpes because this is probably the most touchy, tense, painful subject for people who are either dealing with herpes or who have been newly diagnosed with herpes or who are worried about acquiring herpes. So many people who've had herpes for years that have just removed themselves from the dating scene altogether, or who give up for periods of time, or people who just got herpes and think that they can't date now and they're not dateable and something is now wrong with them. They are now tainted in some way, shape, or form. That could not be further from the truth. But the stigma is such that that is one of the more prevalent thoughts and concerns about getting herpes. Okay, we switched sides in my apartment because the light is coming this way and we're gonna listen to it, baby. I didn't even introduce myself, but if you're watching this video, my name is Suz or suzbub. You can find me on TikTok at suzbub, on Instagram at suzbub with an S, and I am a sensual guide. I am herpes positive. I talk about sex and sensuality and self-love and herpes all wrapped together in a awesome little bow. So dating is one of the most charged elements of the stigma, I would say. That is the main thing everybody is worried about when they acquire herpes or when they meet somebody who has herpes. But mostly I'm speaking to people who acquire herpes and their concerns. The idea is that you can no longer engage in your exploration of your sexual, sensual self. You can no longer casually date. You will not find a partner who loves you or who wants to spend their life with you. Whatever it is that you're looking for in the dating realm, a herpes diagnosis or reminder that you have herpes is something that you can easily use to perceptively rob yourself of that thing. And that thing that they think they're robbed from in the dating realm is different for each person because it's based on whatever their romantic needs or desires are. So some people who are just looking for casual connections will be like, nobody's gonna sleep with me anymore. Somebody who is concerned with finding a life partner or a long-term partner is gonna be like, nobody is gonna love me with this. Someone who is looking to have children is gonna be like, I'm not gonna find anybody who will wanna have kids with me. I can no longer have kids. So that alone just goes to show you that it is a fear-based thought or perception that comes from the stigma. None of it is actually based in fact. Because if there really was a significant change in your dating life after having herpes, let's say you actually could no longer sleep with anybody and doctors told you that, then everyone would have the same fear. Understanding where the stigma came from is so helpful in unpacking what it is that you're really afraid of or think that herpes is gonna take away from you and what that's really rooted in. So some of the reasons that having herpes doesn't have to negatively affect your dating life is because when you look at the statistics and facts around herpes, it is such a common, benign thing. And I have people occasionally try to argue with me that it can be in fact serious, that some people really struggle with it. And that's not to invalidate anybody that has a harder time with herpes. But the fact is that for the majority of people who have herpes, it's as much as 75 to 90%, there are no symptoms at all. And for the majority who have symptoms are really mild. So that could mean that you get a flare-up once a year, a few times a year, every few years. Maybe it starts to, go down in frequency as the years go on. And your flare-ups can be anything from a small rash and a couple blisters to like one tiny blister that is barely visible to the naked eye. I have inspected myself with a mirror with some of my flare-ups and have had so much trouble finding the actual site of the flare-up. I can just feel it. So the first reason that dating with herpes is not a big deal and is totally possible and plausible is because herpes is actually not a big physical encumbrance on your life. The stigma, however, is. That alone is what's mostly going to hold you back from dating if you let it. Another reason that dating with herpes is not a big deal is because almost all of us have herpes. You can go back to my first video to learn about like just how common and widespread it is, to look at all the stats. If someone is hell-bent on avoiding dating people with herpes, then this is what they should be doing. Is getting tested themselves to see if they have herpes, and specifically asking for an HSV1 or HSV2 test, which is quite hard to get without symptoms or exposure. They should then be asking each of their partners the same thing, and then requesting that their partners haven't had a single other partner or physical interaction with anybody else for at least 3 months prior to account for any new like transmission of herpes that wouldn't be detected by the test. And that's like tricky because the test might not detect herpes even if you've had it for years. I just want you to see the comedy in that. Like, that isn't possible. Like, we aren't screened for herpes in routine STD panels, so none of us know our status until we have reason to go get tested and confirm it. So for someone to say that they would never date someone with herpes is like a flat out lie, because they already have. They just don't know. So maybe not so much a lie, but just like a gap in perception and logic, because they're already dating and interacting with people who have herpes every day. So that's reason number 2 that dating with herpes is possible, is because most people already have it and most people already date with herpes. They're just not aware of it. So they have this like cognitive shock when they learn like, oh my gosh, you're disclosing that you have herpes to me. Do I want to invite that into my life? And yet the last person they slept with, they haven't even discussed it, and they took a risk that was all the same. And then when people want to differentiate between oral herpes and genital herpes, that makes no sense either, because you can just as likely, if not more so, transmit oral herpes to someone's genitals as, you know, genital herpes to someone's genitals. So if you think about like how much more common oral herpes is, like literally the majority of the population, not just more than half, but the majority, and it can also be passed asymptomatically, you are risking it with any oral interaction, like oral sex, right? How many people are requesting and using protection for oral sex? I didn't even know what a dental dam was until I learned about herpes and like was terrified that I'd have to use a dental dam for the rest of my life. And for the record, you do not have to. It is up to you what level of protection you and your partner decide to take on, but tell me how many times you, having given or received oral sex, have used protection. And herpes is not the only thing you can contract through oral sex. So that, once again, is to just point out the error in logic of someone being like, I would date someone with oral herpes but not genital, because you're taking the exact same risk. A lot of people have cold sores and don't even equate it to oral herpes, aren't even aware of the risk, and don't even disclose it to their partners. Okay, the next reason that you can absolutely date with herpes is because you, being a herpes positive person who's aware of that, is arguably a safer or just as safe a partner as someone who doesn't know their status. Because so many of us are not screened for herpes and have no idea whether we have it or not, and because it can be passed and is passed asymptomatically as often as it is with symptoms, we, having the awareness and knowledge that we have it, can actually do things to protect our partners that someone who's unaware can't. So things like, you get to know your prodrome symptoms, the things that come up before a flare-up is approaching, when you become more contagious, you're most contagious leading up to, during, and right after a flare-up. So you get to know those symptoms, and then you can say, I feel a flare-up coming on, I'm going to avoid any activity, just like you would and should if you get oral flare-up coming on. You should not be sharing drinks with people, kissing anybody, or performing orally. I wonder if my neighbor can like hear me, because I can hear their dog when their dog barks, and this would be a funny thing to overhear. It's also not like because you have herpes, you are automatically going to transmit it to somebody. People spend years with partners who are herpes positive and don't get herpes themselves. Like I said, people have unknowingly slept with or interacted or dated people with herpes who weren't even aware of their status themselves and didn't wind up getting herpes. It's not like a one and done deal. Of course, you want to be safe and take whatever precautions necessary, but even if you're in a situation where, let's say you're in a committed long-term relationship with somebody who has herpes and you're not using protection and you're close to a flare-up, it still isn't a guarantee that you're gonna get it. Viruses are not like, we should know, like from this pandemic, that they are not super predictable. Like, yes, there's things about them that we understand and predict and we can like safeguard ourselves, but they're their own fucking things. Okay, so those are just some modes of thinking to like crack you out of the box that like you can't date because you have herpes, or you can't date somebody because they have herpes. Of course, if you're someone with health anxiety, or you have an autoimmune issue, or it's really scary to you and you just can't get over like the stigma and don't want to educate yourself about it, you don't have to date somebody who has told you they have herpes, right? They don't have to date you, whoever you disclose to, as long as they're polite and respectful, or you in that position are polite and respectful. We never drag anybody who's polite and respectful, but I'm just saying, if that's going to be a deal breaker for you, you need to like level the playing field and put oral herpes in the same category. And I'm just letting you know that that is going to decrease your dating pool by like 80%. Having and discussing herpes should be as low-key and common and normal as talking about having a zit on your damn face. Most people have it, it's not a big deal, and I've had people try to throw these like rare cases to me and complications and whatever. The same shit can happen on any medication you're on, any virus you acquire. Anything can like, in a small rare percentage, go haywire and cause complications, okay? Okay, the other thing I want to talk about with regards to dating is like how to approach dating when you've gotten herpes, right? The first thing I would say is like really take the time to process your diagnosis and heal, especially if you've acquired herpes in some way that was like traumatic, like a partner cheated on you or lied to you or purposely transmitted to you or was like mentally, emotionally, or physically abusing you, or if you were SA'd, like all those things are a whole other thing to unpack and unravel and heal from, hopefully with the help of therapy and other resources. But take the time to learn about the stigma and where it came from, unlearn it for yourself, get more comfortable with your diagnosis, reconnect with your confidence and sensuality and sexuality. And like, I'm gonna make more content about this. And then venture out into dating when you're not looking for validation. Because if you venture out into dating too soon, looking for validation, you could get burned. Yes, you might find some comfort in that, and I actually did do it early on for myself, not right after I got herpes, but when I was newly single after acquiring it, I did disclose to a few people for practice, and it did kind of help me to see that most people didn't care. But likewise, if somebody were to reject you in that vulnerable state, you could take it really harshly and then be like, fuck dating. So when you go out into the dating world, figure out what it is that you're looking for. We should be aware of or communicating to partners what we're looking for anyway, if that's like a casual situation or like a more serious romantic involvement or just being like open to what happens. We should be communicating that anyway because it saves so much pain and hassle down the road. And that's going to make it easier for you to figure out how to disclose, which is the other major thing that comes with dating with herpes that I'll probably make a whole separate video on. Because depending on what you're looking for and how you're approaching dating, you might disclose in different ways and at different times. Like if you're dating casually, you might disclose right away as soon as you make a match or feel some chemistry coming on and just be like, hey, like just to let you know, I have herpes. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. If you're looking to date seriously or you really want to vet your partners before you engage in anything, maybe you disclose after a couple dates or a first date when you've like gotten to assess some of the personal chemistry and see if there's anything there. Some people feel more comfortable disclosing it in person. Some people feel more comfortable with text. But there are things around your messaging that you want to like do and not do. I have a link in the description to a guide that people from the herpes subreddit put together. That is a guide to disclosing that is incredibly helpful and has so much good information in there. But again, without making a whole separate video about it, some things in the do section would be like keeping it light, stating it like it's anything else you would share with a person, expecting like the best possible outcome. And some things in the don't category would be not to like disparage and self-deprecate yourself in the eyes of this person. Don't say things like, I understand if this is a deal breaker, or if you don't want to date me after this, or if you never want to talk to me again. Don't preface it as this massive big deal of like, I have to tell you something, you know, really intense. Because think about how somebody with a cold sore, aka oral herpes, would do it. And we're literally talking the same thing, just on a different part of your body that is stigmatized only because it's on a different part of your body. The other thing I would say about dating is like, get comfortable with and accept a healthy amount of rejection. Not because you're going to get rejected more for having herpes necessarily, like that is an experience for a lot of people, but you know, it can depend on how they're disclosing, right? Like if you're disclosing to people and saying you have this horrible affliction, you understand if they never want to see you again, that isn't going to make it easier for somebody to look past it. They already likely carry an unreasonable stigma about it themselves and a lack of education. So you are usually their first point of contact with learning what herpes is and how it works in general. So the more casually and realistically you can present it, the better it's going to go over, as opposed to like presenting it as this massive, horrible thing that I have no doubt has had an emotional impact on you, but is an indication, if it's really hard and heavy for you to disclose to someone, that you might need more time with it to like accept it and heal from it and find your self-worth and confidence again. Believe me, I have been there where I would burst out crying telling someone that I have herpes. And that to me was just like, okay, girl, you need to step back. You need to nurture yourself for a while. You need to like unravel this stuff and then come back when you're feeling good again. Rejection is just a natural part of dating. And I think it's healthy to get comfortable with it because we can be rejected for all kinds of things and all kinds of different reasons that have nothing to do with herpes. Think about how many times you got ghosted before you ever had herpes. Think about how many times you might have crushed on somebody and they didn't like you back, or like you put yourself out on the limb for someone and they didn't take the bait. Like it happens anyways. Herpes is just a thing that you are, putting with your left foot forward. And so it's like scarier to you that it's going to be an easier means through which someone will say no. But if someone's really into you, it's not going to matter. Remember that people's comments online do not reflect reality. People like to say shit online to put other people down. They like to pick on easy targets. But I guarantee you that any of these people faced with a person with herpes in real life that they're attracted to would never say the things they say and would 100% not decline them. So bottom line is, yes, you can date casually with herpes. Yes, you can sleep with people with herpes. Yes, you can find love and romance with herpes. Yes, you can have children with herpes and conceive children with herpes. You can go back to my first video for more detail on that stuff, but like, herpes does not in any way, shape, or form affect your fertility. They take precautions to ensure that you don't pass it to a baby. You can still deliver a baby naturally. You can still conceive like everybody else and not use protection, obviously, because you have to forgo protection to conceive traditionally. You can choose what level of protection and safeguards you want to take with your partners in different contexts. The most important thing is simply disclosing to your partners so that they have a choice and so that you can have that discussion together. And don't let your herpes diagnosis blind you from also thinking about your partner and asking your partner when they've been tested and if they know their status. You are not the bad apple in the dynamic. That's the only concern. It's also important not to settle for anybody because they accept your herpes diagnosis, or to stay with somebody because they're used to your herpes diagnosis. Please don't let it be something that locks you into situations that you don't deserve. I know that in many ways it held me back from leaving a damaging, relationship because I was terrified to be alone and terrified to face the world being single with herpes again. But I have never felt better, more confident, more loving to myself, more appreciative of myself than when I stood up for myself and took that step and chose myself and got the fuck out of that situation. And do me a favor and don't only think about like what you can and can't have being herpes positive. Think about what you want from a partner, what you want to experience in your dating life. Your standards should be high and align with your values as a person and what you want. Does the person that you're disclosing to exhibit like the right amount of respect for another person, the right amount of humanity and understanding, of curiosity, of knowledge and education? If I disclose to somebody and they're asking me what herpes even is, that is a red flag for me. If I'm disclosing to someone and they don't even give they care too little to the point where I have to convince them to use protection and they don't even want to have the sexual health talk and they haven't been tested, that is a flag for me. Determine what your flags are and what kind of responses will feel good to you when you disclose and which ones won't. And then people often want to know what my experience dating with herpes has been. And I can probably make a longer video on that too, but in short, literally 9 times out of 10, everyone is okay with it. They thank me for my honesty. Sometimes they have questions and they're willing to learn more about it. I've never had anyone be really rude. The rudest thing I've had happen was somebody unmatch in the middle of the conversation because they were like, I'm running, you know what I mean? And I know that a person like that is someone I would never want to go near because that to me immediately says a lot about who they are as people. Because again, there is a polite way to respond to somebody disclosing something like that. If someone's gonna up and run and unmatch in the middle of a conversation, they're a little chicken shit who can't even be bothered to educate themselves and is scared of something as ridiculous and silly as herpes. It amazes me how judgmental people can be about an STD or STI when they themselves have had chlamydia 5 times or have never been tested. Okay, so I think that's it for my video. There's probably so much more that I can dive into about dating, so feel free to ask some questions in the comments if you want me to go deeper into any particular topic. Like I said, I think I can make a whole other video on disclosing alone. So there's more that I'm going to be talking about, especially around finding your confidence and sensuality again with herpes. One thing I want to do to end the video is respond to a comment in my comment section. I think it can be a fun little outro. I'm probably going to do a whole reaction video to a bunch of comments in the future. So let's pick a random comment to react to. Okay, well, I am going to address this one because I get a lot of comments from people who are faithful Christian, Catholic, what have you. I grew up in a Catholic family, so I remember reading the Bible. I remember learning about it. I remember going to church. So I have some semblance, I have some recollection of the teachings that they're throwing at me to make me wrong about existing with herpes. But this guy used it as a tool to put down my general existence and self-expression and how it was wrong due to the Bible teachings, okay? So his comment said, will you brag about being hot? Pride. You're a sensual guide. Adultery. Read the Bible. Look at your videos. That's how. The thing that's so funny to me is how pressed men get about you knowing and stating that you're attractive. 2 fun facts about me. Yes, I have herpes. And yes, I'm fucking hot. And in general, people will flip self-love into narcissism to prevent you from cultivating any kind of self-appreciation and adoration as if it's a wrong, selfish thing to do. Our whole society is based around constantly putting ourselves down, telling ourselves we're not good enough, having advertising and consumerism also tell us we're not good enough. So when you want to counter that and actually build up your self-worth and confidence and tell yourself and proclaim to the world that not only are you good enough, but you're beautiful, you're worthy, you're attractive, you're amazing. It gets some men so fucking angry. But no, I should humble myself into non-existence. That's what I should be doing. sensual guide. This guy doesn't even know what a sensual guide is or sensuality. He probably assumes that it's like code word for an SW. I have nothing against, and I fully support SWs. Our sensuality relates to mindfulness and presence and finding pleasure through all our senses, and also connecting with a self-cultivated, sensual self-expression that makes us feel more confident, beautiful, and worthy in this world. I don't know how that is adultery. Like, I thought adultery was when you cheat, which my ex did. And people like this man love to point at my self-expression and my videos and the way I like dress and move around in my videos as like the reason that I'm A, blasphemous, and B, herpes positive, because my character is what led to me getting herpes in the first place. That somehow me being sexual and sensual and confident in my body and my appearance and who I am led me to get herpes. The funny thing is I wasn't even this confident and self-expressive until after I got herpes, because before I got herpes, I was in a relationship where someone was lying to me and cheating on me. You know, I was like quieting myself and silencing myself almost to a point where I fucking disappeared. So that is my response to this bozo's comment. Let me know if you like that little outro, if you want me to do these with future videos, and what you want me to talk about with regards to dating in more depth, if so. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, in the meantime, you can find me on TikTok at suzbub. You can find me on Instagram at suzbub with an S. I will be making more videos here, maybe going live soon. I tend to go live on TikTok. I also have things underway, so like I said, you can see some ways to work with me on my website. I am working on a guide, like a downloadable PDF that is all about accepting herpes with sensuality and like finding your inner badass again. So that is going to come out soon, so stay tuned for it. Okay, bye.